The 2026 Formula One season has officially begun, and George Russell delivered a commanding victory, leading teammate Kimi Antonelli to a stunning Mercedes 1-2 finish, while Ferrari could only watch from behind as Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton settled for third and fourth. But the final result only tells part of the story, because this race was filled with strategy gambles, intense battles, and early warning signs about which teams truly understood the new 2026 regulations. Before we break down everything that happened in Melbourne and what it means for the championship fight ahead, make sure to subscribe to F1 Grid and turn on notifications so you never miss the biggest Formula One analysis, race breakdowns, and behind-the-scenes stories from the world of F1. After months of speculation about the new regulations, power units, and revolutionary hybrid systems, the first race finally gave us real answers. And the biggest headline from Melbourne was clear: Mercedes has arrived with a monster of a car. The anticipation leading into this race was enormous. The 2026 season marks the beginning of a completely new technical era in Formula One. Teams spent years developing their cars around the new hybrid power unit regulations, which put far more emphasis on electrical energy deployment and recovery than ever before. Throughout preseason testing and the practice sessions in Melbourne, we saw hints of what each team might bring to the table. Ferrari looked extremely competitive in practice, even topping the early sessions while experimenting with aggressive energy harvesting strategies. McLaren appeared quick over single laps. Red Bull looked fast but unpredictable. But the real surprise came from Mercedes, who quietly revealed during qualifying that their new power unit might be the most powerful and efficient engine on the grid. Qualifying already hinted that Mercedes might have the upper hand this weekend. George Russell secured pole position ahead of his young teammate Antonelli, confirming the rumors that the Silver Arrows had found something special with their new hybrid system. But even then, many believed Ferrari would challenge them during the race, especially with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton showing strong long-run pace in practice. When the lights finally went out at Albert Park, the race immediately exploded into action. Charles Leclerc made an incredible start from fourth on the grid and swept into the lead at turn 1, overtaking Russell in a bold move that caught everyone by surprise. For a moment, it looked like Ferrari might take control of the race. What followed in the next few laps was one of the most exciting early battles we've seen in recent seasons. Russell and Leclerc traded positions multiple times, pushing their cars to the limit, while Lewis Hamilton hovered just behind them in third, waiting for any opportunity to strike. Meanwhile, Kimi Antonelli was quietly recovering from a slightly difficult start. The young Italian, who had already impressed everyone by qualifying on the front row, dropped down the order in the opening chaos, but began climbing back toward the front as the race settled. The race took its first major strategic turn on lap 11 when Red Bull's Isaac Hadjar was forced to pull off the track due to a mechanical issue. The incident triggered a virtual safety car, and Mercedes immediately reacted by bringing both Russell and Antonelli into the pits. Ferrari, however, made a completely different call. They kept both Leclerc and Hamilton out on track, hoping to extend their stint and potentially gain track position later in the race. At first, this decision seemed like it could give Ferrari the advantage. When racing resumed, Leclerc was leading Hamilton, with Russell nearly 10 seconds behind after his pit stop. But this is where Mercedes' strategy team showed why they are often considered one of the sharpest operations in Formula One. Another virtual safety car soon followed when Valtteri Bottas stopped his Cadillac near the pit entry. Again, Ferrari stayed out while Mercedes stuck with their earlier stop strategy. The key question then became clear. Could the Mercedes drivers make their tires last until the end of the race? Normally, running such a long stint would be extremely risky, especially under the demanding conditions of the Albert Park circuit. But the new Mercedes seemed to manage its tires and energy deployment remarkably well. Russell began building a consistent gap at the front, while Antonelli settled comfortably into second place. Behind them, Ferrari finally made their pit stops, but by the time Leclerc and Hamilton returned to the track, the Mercedes cars were already back in control of the race. The strategy gamble from Ferrari simply didn't work the way they had hoped.
From that moment on, the race became a test of endurance. Russell and Antonelli were running on aging tires, with more than 30 laps on their set. Ferrari tried to close the gap, but the Silver Arrows never looked truly vulnerable. The efficiency of the Mercedes power unit allowed them to maintain a strong pace without destroying their tires. George Russell, in particular, drove a remarkably controlled race. After the intense early battle with Leclerc, he managed his pace perfectly, protecting the tires while still maintaining enough speed to keep Ferrari at a safe distance.
Behind him, Antonelli delivered one of the most impressive rookie performances we've seen in recent years. Remember, this was his first full Formula One race, and he was already fighting at the very front of the grid. The young Italian kept his composure under immense pressure and held on to second place, securing a dream debut result for Mercedes. By the final laps, the race had settled into a tense but controlled conclusion. Leclerc managed to hold on to third place, while Hamilton tried to close the gap to his teammate but ultimately finished fourth. Lando Norris completed the top 5 for McLaren, fending off a late challenge from Max Verstappen. Verstappen's performance deserves special mention. After crashing in qualifying and starting from 20th place, the reigning champion produced a remarkable recovery drive to finish 6th. It was a reminder that even when Red Bull doesn't have the fastest car, Verstappen remains one of the most dangerous drivers on the grid. Further down the field, there were several standout performances. Haas driver Ollie Bearman finished 7th with a strong and consistent race, while rookie Arvid Lindblad scored points on his Formula One debut by finishing 8th for Racing Bulls. Audi also celebrated a positive result in their first race as a works team, with Gabriele Bortoleto finishing 9th. Pierre Gasly completed the top 10 for Alpine. Unfortunately, the race also brought disappointment for several teams. McLaren's Oscar Piastri never even made it to the starting grid after spinning on his way to the race start in front of his home crowd. Aston Martin endured a difficult day, with both Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll struggling with reliability issues. Cadillac's debut race also ended in frustration after Bottas retired and Sergio Perez finished far down the order. But the biggest story of the weekend remains Mercedes. For years, the team has been chasing the dominance they once enjoyed during the hybrid era. The 2026 regulation changes appear to have given them the perfect opportunity to return to the top. The new power unit, combined with excellent energy deployment and tire management, seems to give Mercedes a clear advantage, at least on circuits like Melbourne, where energy efficiency plays a critical role. If the performance we saw this weekend continues at other tracks, the rest of the grid may have a serious problem on their hands. At the same time, Ferrari showed enough potential to suggest they won't be far behind all season. Their pace and practice and the early laps of the race prove that the SF26 is a competitive machine, but strategy decisions and energy deployment issues during qualifying and the race ultimately prevented them from challenging Mercedes for the win. Red Bull, meanwhile, faces perhaps the biggest questions heading into the next race. Verstappen's recovery drive showed that the car still has potential, but the team clearly struggled with reliability and energy management throughout the weekend. And that brings us to the bigger picture of the 2026 season. With new regulations, new power units, and several rookies making their debut, this championship could become one of the most unpredictable seasons we've seen in years. Mercedes currently looks like the team to beat. Ferrari remains close enough to challenge them. Red Bull will undoubtedly push hard to fix their issues, and teams like McLaren and Audi could still emerge as serious contenders once development begins. But for now, the opening chapter of the 2026 season belongs entirely to George Russell and Mercedes. Russell's victory in Melbourne marks the 6th win of his Formula One career, and perhaps the most important one yet. More than just a race win, it sends a clear message to the rest of the grid. The Silver Arrows are back. And with the Chinese Grand Prix coming up next week in Shanghai, we won't have to wait long to find out if this was just the beginning of a new Mercedes era.
If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep analysis of Formula One races, strategies, and technical battles throughout the 2026 season, make sure to subscribe to F1 Grid and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next video. Because if the Australian Grand Prix taught us anything, it's that the 2026 Formula One season might be one of the most exciting and unpredictable championships we've ever seen. And trust me, this story is only just getting started.